Welcome to my car wash channel. Today's video is about how to install a set of 18-inch Mercedes Benz SL550 wheels on this 2007 Volkswagen Jetta. If you look at the Jetta wheels, even though this is the 16-inch version, still a relatively small wheel. There's a huge gap in between the wheel well. And as Victoria mentioned it on the last video, where she replaced the stock grille with the badgeless GTI and installed the German license plate, we're going to be doing some upgrades to this car. And one of the biggest changes to any vehicle, regardless of the make and model, is wheels. You know, once you install the correct set of wheels and tires, it completely transforms the look of the car. So that's what this video is about, is to give this car a much better look with these high-end wheels, to continue transforming its look and give it a very unique appearance that's going to be unmatched by any other Jetta that's been driven on the road. The very first tip to start with is the fact that on the back of the wheel, the Mercedes Benz wheels have a larger diameter hub. It's 66.6, to where the hub of the wheels that the Jetta has is 57.1 millimeters. The bolt pattern of the wheels is the same as the Jetta, which is 5x1 12 millimeters. So we know that the bolt pattern is not an issue. And on a pinch, the wheels would mount even though the hub diameter is much larger on the Mercedes Benz. And the purpose of the lug nuts is to hold the wheel, not to carry the entire weight. So it puts too much stress on them, eventually they may come loose, they could even break. So it's not a good idea to just do it like that. So to fix that problem, what I'm going to install is this aftermarket centering rings. And what they're going to do is they're going to fit on the wheel snug because they are the right diameter on the outside edge of the ring itself, 66.6, and the inside diameter is 57.1, which is going to slide over the hub of the Jetta, and that's going to enable the wheel to be centered correctly, and a lot of the weight is going to be carried by the hub and not by the lug nuts. Another thing too, the wheel bolts for the Mercedes Benz wheel, they're longer. So if you're getting a set of wheels that are used, you need to make sure that you purchase the wheel bolts. So how we're going to continue with this video is I'm going to remove the stock wheel and I'm going to show you what to look for when installing a different wheel to make sure that it's flush with the car and it's not either sticking out or it's too far in to where it's going to rub. And to do that, you have to know what kind of offset the wheel has and what kind of backspacing it has. So we're going to start with that in case you decide to either install a set of wheels like this or another set of aftermarket ones and you don't know whether they're going to fit your car or not. These are all the wheel bolts and the centering rings up close. I'm just going to do one wheel at a time. I'm going to use the jack stand for safety. Okay, so here's the wheel, and first thing to notice, it's a huge difference. So everything from the width to the diameter, huge difference. These are going to make the car look so much better. because like I said, they're going to fuel the wheel wells. So here is the Volkswagen, and there's the Mercedes Benz. These won't even go through the wheel itself, so definitely, like I said, if you're doing what we're doing with this car, make sure you get the Mercedes Benz Wheel Bolts. Same thread pattern, so don't need to worry about that. Like I said, we want to make sure that when installing these wheels, no matter whether they're Mercedes Benz or any other aftermarket wheel, they're not either going to be sticking out way over here, or they're going to be so far in that they will be rubbing against the strut. So I'm going to go through those steps, that way you know what to look for. And another thing too, aside from being, Mercedes-Benz high-end wheels, these are not cheap tires either. They're Toyo tires. So we're installing the best quality on this car that is going to make it look good and perform good at the same time. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to use this string right here so I can take a measurement. So I'm going to make sure this has weight to it, so it's pulling on it. Put it aligned with the wheel. Just like that. So with this tape measure, I'm going to measure the distance from the brake rotor to the string. And I have about 2 1/4 inches of distance. So I'm going to write that down. So I know that the distance that I have right here from the mounting surface to the edge of the car is 2 1/4. Another useful information that you could need if you have wheels that are extremely wide is to know how much distance you have here. So I have slightly over 10 inches of distance right there. Okay, so I don't need this anymore. Alright, so what I'm going to do, and then I measure all these wheels, they're all the same, they're not staggered. I know that some SL models will have 8.5s and 9.5s. So what I'm going to do is, now we're going to take some measurements. I'm going to flip it. So I'm going to measure it from the floor, and I'm going to take into account the tire, okay, because I'm not going to dismount it. So right now I have 10 from the floor to the ruler. If I want to know what offset these wheels have, which sometimes that's the only description you're going to find when you're buying wheels, that it'll tell you whether it has a positive offset or a negative offset, and usually that's in millimeters. So to do that, now we have to know the difference in between the center line of the wheel and the mounting surface. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to measure from here to the edge where I'm going to put the square again. Let's see what that measurement is. So right there is 6 3/4. Okay, so I have those measurements right there, and so now I need to know what kind of offset I have. First thing is divide 10 by 2, right? Because that would be the center line, so that would be 5. So now I need to subtract 5 from 6 3/4. So 6.75 minus 5, that's 1.75 is the difference. That's the offset of the wheel in inches. If you want to know, is this a positive or negative offset? Very simple. This is a positive offset. What that means is that the mounting surface is going to be closer to the outside of the wheel, and there's going to be more wheel surface on the inside. A negative offset, the mounting surface would be closer to the inside of the wheel, which it would be on this side of the center line, and there will be more wheel sticking out. I know that sometimes off-road pickups, they look kind of cool with this hugonchos tires sticking out, but the bearings don't tend to last as long because of that. So now I need to convert the 1.75 inches to millimeters to know what kind of offset this wheel has. Now, one of the things to consider is we measured the wheel with the tire installed, so I couldn't measure the inside part. So we're going to see what that is in millimeters. So when I measured the distance, it was with the tire installed, and I couldn't measure the inside part. So there's going to be a slight discrepancy. So we're just going to call it 1/4 of an inch right there. So that would make it, instead of 1.75, it would make it about 1.5. And if we convert that, that gives us about 38.1 millimeters of positive offset on those wheels. So that measurement is important when you're buying them, obviously, right? But the measurement that I actually needed to take is different to give the car the look that I wanted. So what I wanted was a wheel that would be flush, and like I said, it wouldn't be sticking out or it wouldn't be too tucked in. So we know that the distance right here was 2 1/4 from here to the edge of the car. And now I just need to measure the distance from the mounting of this wheel to the edge of it, which is what matters to me. And measuring that, it's about 2 1/2 is what I have. So I'm going to have about 1/4 inch on the front, which to me is not a whole lot, because I will have enough distance so it would clear and it wouldn't rub on the turns. Depending on how picky you are, if you wanted it completely flush, then you would have to have a different offset. But once you see how this wheel looks installed, you're probably going to agree with me that it's perfect. It's almost like this wheel was made for it. So that was, like I said, the measurement I needed. I already knew that I had enough distance on the inside. If I went with the 18, I couldn't go with a size that was too much larger unless I used a lower profile tire. So if you want to know what kind of tires this wheel has, it is 255/45 R18 is what it has. So we're going to move on to the installation. Now, one of the things I noticed is that there's a little bit of rust built up, not a whole lot around here, so I'm going to clean it with a wire brush, and I'm going to do the same thing around the wheels so the center rings fit better, because it's almost like they don't want to go on very good, and I don't want it to get so stuck that when I'm ready to take them off they will break. So I'm just going to clean that surface to save me that hassle. Okay, so let's see how the rings fit now. Okay, so it fits snug. Let's see how it fits on the wheel. So on the wheel it fits snug also. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to tap it into the wheel with the rubber mallet. Okay, so we're going to just tap it on gently. So the centering ring is installed. I'm going to show you up close what it looks like. Okay, so it's mounted completely flush with the wheel, and we already know that this fits perfect over the hub. So now we can mount the wheels with confidence that we're not going to put all the stress on the wheel bolts
carrying the entire weight of the car. Now it's going to be carried by the center hub the way it should.
One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a very light coat of anti-seize to the wheel bolts. That way they don't corrode and are hard to take off next time. Maybe even break if rust gets in there. So I don't have to put a whole lot, just a light, very light coat. Okay, so now gently, I'm going to draw it in with a very low air pressure, alternating on the wheel bolts so I don't warp the rim. Alright, so like I said, I use very low air pressure just to make sure the wheel is seated where it should be. I'll finish tightening the bolts with a torque wrench once I lower the car. But right now I just want to make sure that it's all the way on. And it is. So we're going to set this car down to see how it looks. Alright, so I have a cool look. The wheel wells are full now. Now we're going to go ahead and mount the rear to see how the rear one looks. The rear one is going to be a little bit more flush because the front of the car starts going towards the inside because of the aerodynamic design. So I'm going to go ahead and mount the rear wheel the same way I did the front, and I'm going to just fast forward the video when I'm to that point so we can get the look on both sides, and we'll compare it on how it looks from this side versus the stock one. So like I said, I'll just fast forward to that point. Okay, so I have a left front and a left rear wheel installed, and I haven't installed the ones on the other side yet, so we can show the difference. What I'm going to do, I'm going to aim the camera up close. That way we can see the big difference in between the Mercedes Benz wheels and the stock Jetta wheels. One of the things that I didn't mention earlier is when you're doing your measurements and when you put your string, make sure you measure the distance from the mounting to either the strut or the spring, depending on the height of the wheel and the width of the wheel. This one right here, I knew it would come right under the spring, so I just needed to measure the distance from the strut to the mounting, and I knew I had enough clearance, but I forgot to mention it earlier. 20-inch or 20-inch wheels, then you couldn't have the same width that I'm installing in here because they would rub against the coil spring unless the offset was such that the wheels would be sticking out, but in the same token they would rub against the fender. So one way or another they wouldn't work. So what I'm going to do for you, I'm going to measure the overall diameter, and we're talking about 26.5. So that way you know that regardless of what combination you go with, it shouldn't exceed 26.5 of overall diameter, because if you go with anything taller, you're going to have clearance issues with the strut and the spring. So take that into consideration when you do this with this Jetta, but of course that applies to any other vehicle. So I just wanted to pinpoint that. And like I said, what I'm going to do, I'm going to walk around with the camera so we can see what a difference from the Mercedes wheels to the stock OEM Jetta wheels.
And there are the other wheels right there that I haven't installed. So if we go from here, see the edge right there? Just the front has slightly, hardly anything. I mean, it's hardly even noticeable as far as being outside the car. And the rear is completely flush, but I'm going to go on from the back. So I'm giving it a little bit of an angle so we can see how it looks from kind of the side. But now I'm going to move towards the back so we can see how flush it looks. Right there, super clean, man. It's almost like these wheels were designed for this car. So I'm going to give it another look right there. So this is from like the side. So the stock wheel, I mean, gigantic gap, and here's the edge of the car. I mean, it doesn't sit flush with the car. If you look at it like that, right there, you know, here's the fender, the wheels way the heck in there, and you got this huge gap right there. There's how it looks.
So I'm going to finish by installing the ones on the other side. No need to film it, you get the idea, right? But that's what it takes to install 18-inch Mercedes Benz SL550 wheels that are riding on 255/45 R18 tires. I already told you what the overall diameter is, so if you don't want to do too much homework, you already have everything you need. I already told you earlier what the offset should be if you want to give your car this look, which is way better than the OEM look. And another useful tip, if you're putting wheels on a car like this, make sure that the wheels have the sensors for the tire pressure monitoring system, because otherwise the light will always be on because they'll be missing. These wheels had them on already. Once we drive it, we're going to know if the sensors are compatible with the car or if there is any of them that could be damaged. There's no need to reset the tire pressure monitoring system on a 2007 Jetta. Once you drive it for at least 7 miles at an average speed limit of more than 25 miles an hour, so to speak, the computer will go through all the steps of identifying whether the sensors are there or not and monitor the pressure on the tires. So we'll know once we drive it, but for right now we know that the sensors are installed. So don't forget to stay tuned for more upcoming videos because we're going to continue doing modifications to this car. So make sure you check our channel on a regular basis because this car is going to be completely different when we're done. And like I said, I'm going to finish installing the remaining wheels. So we'll see you on the next one.